Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future, shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable, ongoing reality. All the way. That's crazy. I mean, time is just going so fast. So fast. I mean, it's just like, I remember when they said 90 days till election. It's bizarre, and I hope you guys are getting out there and voting. Every vote counts. It's important. This is, I believe, the most important election of our lifetime.
It really is.
I mean, I feel like we're in some sort of crossroad, like you're walking and you have like different paths, and depends on the path that you take, and the destiny and how this world is going to play out.
Well, it's like the path back, the path, and the path forward to the future.
It's 4 years of Trump. Other people have said, well, he's been president before. He had a very different mental state.
He did.
And there are groups of individuals that are backing him up that have a very horrible plan. I mean, this whole concept about when they're talking about all these commercials that wives should be capable of voting differently from their husbands, and they're having a election.
Yeah. Like, someone just to have the autonomy to make the conscious decision that is basically theirs to make. It's like their own private reasoning, their own personal reasons. Maybe this woman didn't feel like the person who instigated whatever happened on January 6th isn't suitable to be a president. Maybe she just feels that that's just not what she would ever want. She has the right. It's a private matter to place that vote in the ballot box and not to be forced to tell anyone what she did.
Yeah, she might not like the fact that her autonomy is being taken away, and that Trump is promising to take care of you whether you like it or not. That's kind of creepy.
I'm gonna force myself. Wait, let me see. He's good at forcing himself.
Yeah, he does that very often, and it's disrespectful to women. I mean, this whole conservative party seems to have that air about them. It's like they want to take things back. They would want for life to be back around the 1800s. And he's always talking about that. I want to bring that Alien Act from the 1790s. It's like soon we'll be wearing, the articles of clothing, and women will be covered, and they won't be able to speak. I mean, it's crazy, and it might sound like a joke, but it's no joke. Because
I wish it was funny, but they said, "Oh no, you'll never take away the right to a woman to be able to have an abortion." Or not.
He's the one that created the whole mess in the first place by assigning the judges in the Supreme Court. They knew what they're doing. It's like little by little they've been like planting themselves and plotting the whole scheme that they have, and it's not good. It's not good at all. And I don't understand how people don't see it.
I mean, Trump is a blank canvas. let's just put that out there. The Trump that you saw in 2016 was more moderate, was more inclusive, was like really like had more, because he used to be more of a liberal in the middle,
Yeah.
and then the right wing of the Christian Nationalist part of the Republican Party got to him.
Mhm.
And they said, look, if you want to have these votes, if you want this segment of the population,
Nope, I
then
disappeared.
you need to do this. And he's like, okay, but what do I need to do? Now you need to install these Supreme Court justices, which initially Obama had the right to put in Merrick Garland.
Mhm.
And that was like contested in the Senate and it wasn't allowed. So they were able to add another justice, which isn't fair
Yeah.
because if Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away or some other Democrat leaning person in the Supreme Court passed away, it should have been allowed to have that replacement by a Democrat to keep it level so that we don't have this one-sided, Supreme Court, which is basically, okay, it's set up.
It's not a
Yeah.
democracy then,
Yeah.
it's a fascist system, which is what they're aiming for. And I know they don't like using that word, but it fits. If you look at what that word represents and you look at what Trump does and what he says is very equivalent. Okay, it is what it is. I mean, he sat there this morning, we listened to the news, he was having a discussion with Tucker, and he
Here
mentioned
in Arizona.
yeah, he mentioned that Liz Cheney should be literally put in front of a firing squad and killed. That's inciting violence. That's like wishing for someone to be dead. Who does that? And especially not the future
Oh, but that's not what he meant.
president. I mean,
They would
oh yeah,
say,
they're always
people are like, you guys take things too literal. That's what you guys do all the time. You take things too literal. It's like, how can you not take a literal, guy saying that he's going to put a woman up against a firing squad to see how she likes it?
And all the name calling, he calls Kamala stupid. He called Liz stupid. I mean, he's just he's a bundle of joy. All he does is spew negativity and insults towards people.
He does.
That's not president material. I'm sorry. That's like mental institution material. He's too old. That stunt with the garbage truck went bad. I mean, it's like,
childish.
and his physical health is for the world to see deteriorating. He can't even walk. He couldn't even open the door of a truck. He like had a connection. It's almost like he stroked out or something.
And people want to say, oh, Biden, I can't believe that you're making a big deal out of it because Biden was already like diminishing, but you didn't say anything on your Facebook wall. You didn't make any posts about it on social media. And it's like, you got to understand, we have two options back in 2020. One was the despot and the fascist then of, doing what he was going to do. Or the older guy who literally said, I'm going to get out of retirement. I'm just going to do this as a go-between to the next generation and try to, save democracy from this tyrant wannabe who literally, because Biden said, I saw that event in Charlottesville where they had sympathizers from the Enzies, saying Jews will not replace us and being really violent, and he's like, I decided to do something. For the good of the country, for the sake of the country.
Ever since
Trump, he was old and diminished, but he wasn't Trump.
He wasn't Trump. And Trump is a very divisive. He divides people constantly. He creates all sorts of violence, which we don't need. Look at his last rally. That was like the most racist rally I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh. One of the speakers actually said, I didn't know that I was going to go from Israel to a Nazi rally. He said that.
I know. And then, they're dissing Hispanics, dissing Puerto Ricans, calling it an island of garbage.
It's just so repulsive, talking about how, how risky Latin men are and how they like to have babies with women and, these really like, I mean, it's like, okay, the guy's a roasting kind of comedian.
But it's not a place for a roasting type of comedian. And then you have this pastor calling Kamala the devil and the Antichrist. And I mean, it's just like nonstop. It's crazy.
People, they don't grow up. I mean, Rudy Giuliani was saying something about the Haitians needed to be sent back to the jungle or something. And it's like, what kind of world is this?
We're
living in like 1962 Alabama.
That's what.
Do they want
to make America great again?
Black people again, so that they can't get to school.
Make America great again. What? First of
all, America racist again.
Yeah, I've never seen America be great ever. First of all, they took the land that didn't belong to them, and they slaughtered the Indians, and they've done terrible things. Occupied throughout the world, lied. The CIA has done a lot of terrible things to people without them knowing. I mean, if you do your research and your homework, you'll see what this really represents. But there might be some moments, that were patriotic, that we had a little bit of civil interaction with one another. Well, that all has been thrown out the window since Trump has come into existence.
The decorum between like Democrat and Republican, I mean, that was something that people like had, respectful debate on the Congress floor, and I cede my opinion to the, gentleman from North Carolina, and it's like, it was just like this effort to want to be compromising, to be able to come to a solution,
to communicate, to try to, I mean, they may not agree with all their policies, but it's not like now that it's just, I mean, people literally dislike one another, and that's being kind. I like to say they hate one another. And it's
just about there. Yeah. It's like, here we have the issue going on with Palestine and Israel, and there's just so much animosity towards both, between both, because of what both have done to each other, and just the rage. And I'm afraid that this country is going in that same direction between those of us who are middle left leaning, and those on the right who want really what is more of a theocracy than it is a democracy or a republican.
Yeah, and then not only do you have the racist against Hispanics, blacks, and anyone that's not white, then you have the anti-LGBTQ. I mean, that was like part of their plan. They're like really scared people with drag queens at school and trans women in women's sports. And I mean, they just like, and transing children. I mean, that was all part of the agenda to scare the living daylights out of people and to get people to dislike people like us.
I mean, there's literally no account of, maybe one account of a trans kid in North Dakota back in the 90s or something, but there wasn't any child that was even on the record books as being that in North Dakota, which, the population of North Dakota, what? Can you name the capital of North Dakota? I mean, but there's lots of land, not a lot of people. And basically, Christian Nationalists got this legislation to pass, banning trans girls from
locker
competing or whatever. And it's like, there weren't any. There were none.
It's just scare tactics, and understanding that there's been this trans revolution that's been like taking place because the world is changing. I remember when I started Transition Radio Show, that was one of the things that I realized, that humanity was going to change, that we were going to return to the oneness, because I believe that this Yahweh God literally divided us as the human that we were.
Angie Payne, hey guys, good to see you too.
Hey Angie, how are you?
Angie.
Glad that you're able to make it and here on the show. Thank you for
Yeah.
tuning in. So I believe that somehow we were divided, and because I believe the original human was both male and female. I feel that in my heart, in my gut, and that this reptilian God literally divided us. I mean, that's the part, in the Bible it talks about, God took Adam's rib. Well, there are other folklores or other accounts that we were literally divided. If you really look into the deeper, because Christianity is a very young religion. I was just working as she listens. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
That's nice. So in that division, I think that the change that we're experiencing, we're trying to get back to our original state. And that's why even in the intro, original state of oneness, And I think that the trans revolution is part of that. People are like, men are realizing that they have a woman part of them, women are realizing that there's a part of them that's male, and it's energy. So in that revolution, in that ability to feel and sense something that is not your typical stereotypical stuff that has been pushed by religion. Man is this way, woman is this way. We are seeing the changes in the gender queer, transgender, transsexuals, all the different expressions which religion tries to demonize.
But it's not to say that everyone does what we did, it's just to the degree that a person recognizes that other side of it, whether it's something that's not traditionally a way that men are supposed to behave or not traditionally a woman's supposed to behave or something. It's like, these are the things that, there's like more so among the young people, it's more like gender queer or
gender bending, gender
bending.
non-conforming.
Yeah, like they don't want to be tied to a certain, box or something. Some of them, but it's like, I don't know why it's such an issue.
Yeah, people. I don't either. And I think it's because old habits die hard and people don't like change. They really don't. And they like things a certain way. And they want their boys to be boys and their girls to be girls and women to be subservient to men. And we are shifting. You could feel it in the air. It's there. It's shifting. There's a revolution. It doesn't necessarily have to be a trans revolution. I call it trans because we're transcending. We are changing in general. The whole humanity is changing. They're realizing the importance of balancing your energy. Is if you want to look at what God actually is, God is energy. We're all part of that energy. And so we're changing, we're evolving, we're transcending.
I think there's literally, in this country specifically at this time, there is a choice that is going to have to be made. And we are being placed into that position of choice, whether, symbolized right now with allowing the feminine to become more integrated into this country and to be given a role in the leadership of this country,
yes.
Or whether we go back to the warring, male-dominated, gender,
strict,
So, I mean, we're literally at a crossroads.
And it's important that we make the right choice as a species because it won't turn out so good for us if we don't. It's important now that we have the feminine energy lead us, get us away from all that warring. All this war that we've been having and we've been seeing needs to be put aside, needs to be put to rest completely, and we need to evolve as the spiritual evolution that we will see in our lifetime. I mean, we haven't seen anything yet. This is just like the growing pains, the rumbling. It's I don't know how to explain it because there's no human words for it, but I'm sure that deep down you feel it, you hear it, you sense it. You don't know what it is yet. Kind of like the Matrix, the way he was talking to was it Lee, I forgot the character, but he was saying something. You sense it, you feel it. You don't know what it is, but it's something that's in you,
Morpheus.
and it's Morpheus, and yeah, and so it's going to get ugly. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But
Sure.
the good news is it will get better, and we will evolve because we have to. It's part of. It's like trying to not a pregnant woman is going to eventually have a baby unless it's miscarriaged or something happens. But you can't stop what's going to happen, and we have to put the old ways behind. And so, bringing it to today's discussion, today's topic, which is trans, what do I call the show? Trans, what is it? I can't remember now.
The
But
title of the show?
yeah, I don't think it says it
I
there.
don't see it.
But it's all related to trans, the nuts and bolts of transgender evolution or something like that. I want to begin by talking regarding detransition. Why do people detransition? I know that I detransition. I tasted that path several times, and there are many different reasons why people do it. It could be shame. It could be you get tired of you feel like you're swimming against the current because no one really understands you. People really give you a hard time. It's hard to find work. You're battling with the religious nature, which that's what happened with us. I mean, you felt guilt. I felt all sorts of different things. And it's normal. It's normal to kind of question your mood, especially when, you see how people behave around you. Do I regret having the transition? I don't, because I think that all those steps that I took, the backing up, going backwards, really helped me cement who I am today. I have a different feeling, different stance, different way of thinking from when I originally transitioned. So it wasn't a waste of time. I mean, I don't know how you felt about yours.
Yeah. For me, 2016 was the one that lasted the longest for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was wrought with all kinds of guilt. And, I was heavily invested on the feeling of not doing right before God, and so I just was overcome with tremendous amounts of guilt and feeling that I had done wrong. And I remember even that day that I said that we were going to transition, I was still like, I don't think I could do it, and it was just a battle the whole time. And it was just a struggle. But I mean, I'm grateful for the time because it allowed me to deconstruct and then be able to reconstruct what I thought about myself and why I was doing what I was doing. And then in 2017, that lasted, maybe a week or two or something. And that was like, I'm going to do everything that I need to do in order to win my children back. And that fell flat because it was almost like it doesn't matter what you do because what you did already disqualified you from being ever able to do anything for your kids, and even in front of my own mother, there was this great disconnect. And
yeah, it's like you're pretty much written off.
It's like you're excommunicated, and the last communication I had with my own sister was in 2021, and I asked her about visiting my mother, and she said, "Well, we've already erased you. We already buried you." So we don't want you coming around. We wish you well, but we don't want you coming around. So,
And see, and then the fact that you end up then losing old friends that are trans. I mean, I know that that's what happened to me. I mean, I alienated just about all my transgender friends, and I knew a lot of trans people because I was an advocate for
we were
many
in
years.
Florida, and we went there, and it was like, chirp, chirp, we're all your friends. And it was because of the fact that we were so anti-trans.
Yeah,
in
so people just,
2015.
I don't blame them. I mean,
You know.
I did a lot of harm, and I regret that, and I've apologized, and I'll apologize again for all the terrible things that I did. But I was trying to figure myself out, and that's no excuse, because hurt people, but you shouldn't hurt people. It's like one of those things that should not be publicized, and I think that when people detransition, there are like those vultures that are waiting around,
especially in the Christian community.
Yeah, to like grab you. I mean, you look at the Matt Walshes, you look at all these. What is it? The Family Heritage Foundation, and I mean, I was hit up by every organization. I mean, if I wanted to, I would have probably making a lot of money right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of money in this. The Christian Nationalists are like always looking for another way to promote
another story,
an anti-trans story.
And you see they're like this chosen little few. They're like, and they make it sound like there's so many detransitions, so many detransitioners and so many people just realizing, that this was terrible, and they, want to stop anyone from transitioning, and they don't want to allow kids to transition, and they just hurt people in general because they're not interested in listening to the other side. They just want their side, and they want their story.
And I can imagine it is terrible if you realize after you've done something or taken something that changed your voice or changed certain aspects of your physical characteristics that you have regrets about and that you want to detransition. You're entitled to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't imagine the pain it would be for someone to do something that they didn't want to do, but it's like that doesn't give them the right to just write it off for everybody at the same time.
And that's the problem, that's where I have an issue. It's like when somebody, there's many that we interviewed, and when the religious right got a hold of them and started parading them all over the place, and then they didn't want other people to transition. They were making excuse me, they were making it difficult for other people to go down that road. And that's wrong to do, because everyone has to pave their way. Everyone has to pave their path, and they have to learn. You learn from your mistakes. So you weren't trans, you detransition. It's nobody's fault but your own. You took that risk. You took that chance. These individuals just want to blame everybody, blame the medical community, blame other trans people for convincing them. It's like,
blame the doctors. I mean, you're like a grown adult, and you're blaming the NHS for telling you, well, you have a moment here. This is an opportunity. If you want to get the surgery, you can. It's available for you. And they made your decision. And that was on them. That was their decision to make. As a 28-year-old person, I mean, it's like you're a grown adult. You have a brain, knowing how.
And then they all, like that tribal instinct, they all decided, the few that detransition decided to unite, and then they create this whole grifter, violent of life mentality. And look, I understand. It's got to be terrible to realize you make a mistake. Your life has been turned upside down. Because now you altered your body. You don't sound the same. You don't look the same. And then you're like, why did I do this? And it feels bad. I understand. I get it. Been there, done that, right? But you got to take responsibility. You can't sit there and try to mold like what Christians do. They try to push their beliefs on everybody. Everybody has to have the same moral compass. Everybody has to have the same way of believing, or else.
Well, look, we have seen this play out like since its inception, basically, since the whole inception of the detransition movement. We have seen it from the ground up. You know, it was Buck Angel who had contacted you about, hey, I wanted to reach out to you about these, what did it say?
The
detransitioners, you know, I mean, so he's like, can you tell me more about it? I mean,
because this is going to be a thing,
you know, and it's like detransitioners. It's like, okay, we get it. We understand it. We've been there. We've done it.
Yeah.
You know, twice, maybe 7 times or something, right? So we have experience in not just living it, but we've interviewed so many that have done it.
Yeah.
And we're talking going on 10 years now,
Yeah.
you know, where this really picked up steam.
Yeah.
And, you know, we saw where it was heading. We saw that, you know, some people were happy with their body just being able to drop a few octaves or something in their voice and looking like Peter Pan, you know, and not having a mustache or beard or whatever. But then you have these other ones that came later. They transitioned for like a few years, and then they do a viral video, like that one blonde girl that had a video talking about how she was detransitioning, and now she's just a girl living her life now. I mean, obviously her voice changed, but she didn't
create
affect,
the
you know, the
changes weren't that
testosterone wasn't like
way.
or like a person like Kat, you know, who was like all worried about her voice and everything and losing her femininity. And well, Kat's fine. Kat's living her life. She's a woman, and you know, I mean, and for Kat's case, what she did it for 6 months or something. It was like, and then you got these people who like jumped into this whole anti-trans narrative, you know, and they just started like selling their story. Like it was like such a huge
it became
deal,
a thing, you know, it became a thing. It was like the thing. So we're gonna get into a little bit of it, and then we're gonna talk about transitioning and all the different stuff. Really get deep into some of this stuff. So there's a variety of reasons why people detransition, both internal and external. Here are some of the factors.
Internal factors would be fluctuating gender identity. Some individuals may experience changes in their gender identity over time.
Gender dysphoria not alleviated. You know, transition may not fully address feelings of dysphoria. For some people, that is the case.
Mental health concerns. Underlying mental health issues can contribute to the decision to detransition. And I remember, who was that one detransitioner? Was a really good looking dude. I forget his name, but he was doing all these videos in the past, and he was promoting, you know, like just his life on YouTube or whatever. Remember back in the 2021, 2020, you know, he decided to detransition, and then he grew his hair out, and then but he still had the masculine features, and he was trying to get all femmed out with earrings. I forget their name, but I mean, it's like
there's so many that you know.
No, there was this one that you had constantly conversations with. It was during the time that I was in Oregon, and I mean in Washington and stuff. But they live in California, and they would make these videos where they were sitting outside in nature. I don't know.
I forgot his name, but yeah,
they talked about mental health issues.
Yeah,
having a problem with the medication.
Sometimes
the testosterone
doesn't agree. I mean, I've noticed that testosterone doesn't agree with everyone, and in a while, you know, like after 5-10 years of use, people start getting anxious, start feeling all sorts of. I mean, I see it all the time online with the trans guys, all sorts of health issues. They haven't learned how to like tailor your dose to the where it's not going to be harmful. Sometimes you have to lower your dose. Sometimes you have to split your dose in two, so it's not so much at one time, especially if you get a hysterectomy. Also, how you lead your life. Are you eating healthy? Are you working out? Are you meditating? All these different things. And if you have a mental health issue, sometimes testosterone may not agree with you. That's just the way it is. So external factors, lack of support. Family, friends, or society may be unsupportive or even hostile towards the individual's transition. And you see that a lot. People lose family members, they lose their kids, like you did. I don't have the greatest relationship with my family. It's been that way since I transitioned. And it was bad when I was identifying as a lesbian, and then it got worse when I transitioned. It's like, no, just why don't you stay a lesbian? It's not about that. But
discrimination and stigma. Transgender individuals may face significant discrimination and prejudice, making it difficult to live life authentically.
And especially if you're the type of person that doesn't pass greatly.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine, individuals that just
get ridiculed
all
the
time. And especially now, especially in this kind of climate, it's got to be really, really bad. Like in Florida with DeSantis, with the way he's made stuff, or in Texas, in certain states, I can't imagine. I used to be so open about my transsexuality. I would out myself.
It blew my mind, actually, because I was like, you have the opportunity to really be self, like in a very 100% way. Mm-hmm. And you still chose so many times, like we would be in a conversation and then you would tell somebody, yeah, and I'm trans, and I'd be like, hey, why?
It was just, to me, it was education. It was a way of it was my way of giving back to the community.
To know.
Right. I thought that people needed to be educated because I knew there was going to be a massive influx, But now I don't talk to anybody about it. In my real life, out in the world, the places that I go to, it's just because of this climate, I'm just like, I don't feel safe to do that anymore because it's a different world altogether. Financial difficulties, medical procedures, and other costs associated with transitioning can be financially burdensome, especially now. Everything has gone up. When I got my top surgery, it was $6,000. I don't even know what it is now. I'm sure it's a lot more. Yeah. And so there are people that may start, but then don't have the money to continue. So they're in that halfway point, and they just figure it's better if I just detransition.
Yeah. Unwanted sexual characteristics. Some individuals may experience unwanted physical changes after medical interventions.
There are people that maybe don't want to be so hairy. They just, there's like one size doesn't fit all. This original back in the Harry Benjamin criteria,
right.
There were certain things that were really, really strict, and now people aren't that way. Now people might do something to get certain changes and feel fine, and then all of a sudden they see all this hair and they don't want that hair, and they're like, oh, this testosterone is really strong, but one size doesn't fit all, and there are many different reasons why people might choose to just put a halt on it, stop it altogether.
And even back then with Harry Benjamin was Harry Benjamin knew that, a non-passing trans woman was not going to be a good thing for society or for that person, because society was so gendered at the time that if you didn't look the part, you would stick out like a sore thumb and you would be a danger to yourself, and others, really, because would just ridicule you to no end. We have you can go and watch old videos of people back in the 70s, and there was a definite gender difference in the types of people walking the streets and stuff. How women were more feminine and masculine, and it
It was
was
a different
definite,
time. Different time.
definite.
And I think that we're changing as a species. And so that's why this like really strict way of being this Christian nationalists, these conservatives that want things to be a certain way, that is just so dinosaur that it's going to go so extinct, because that's not the new world that we're living in. And people are going to express themselves. Like, what was it? We're watching The Voice, that one singer who's like, he's like androgynous, and people are really gravitating towards that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that's something that should be celebrated, that we should all be able to be. We're like canvases. We're art pieces, and we should be able to express ourselves.
I remember the 80s and how like Duran Duran and Boy George and David Bowie and all these like Freddie Mercury,
Liberace,
all these different performers, they were given like free pass to
Elvis.
even Elvis wearing eyeliner in the 50s.
I know.
Or wearing more makeup on the set than his co-star in Viva Las Vegas. I mean, we have like really regressed somewhere around, I don't know, 2000, 2005. Things just started going back to like, the mullet stopped being cool, I guess, at the time, and all the guys had short haircuts. And
I think what happened is after Obama passed the law, whatever, that gay marriage is legal now, the Christian Nationalists really became alarmed, and they decided, if we don't do something to change this, our godly world is going to be taken away from us.
That's what they think now.
Yeah, and it's like, it's crazy.
I think it's important for people to know, if you have detransition, that it's not a failure. It's a complex decision that shouldn't be stigmatized. I mean, you did it, you regret it, you detransition. You should be able to live your life without regrets at that point.
I mean, there's no shame in it. What's shameful is when you try to demonize transitioners, demonize other people, try to make it difficult for others in your mentality, in the quest, so that other people don't get hurt like me. Well, there's no guarantees in life. You're going to go to a dentist, you might die in the dentist chair. They might put too much anesthesia, he might hit a nerve. There's never any guarantee that anything that has to do with the medical community. There's always going to be some sort of complications. That's how it is. But because something happened to you doesn't mean it's going to happen to somebody else. Every time you go out in the street and get behind your car, in the wheel of your car, you're risking your life. You're like literally playing Russian roulette when you go driving. You don't stop drivers because people have to live, they have to work, they have to go get groceries, and it's life.
But it's like those of you detransitioners who took the time out to fly out to Florida, go sit at the Orlando International Airport in a conference room and talk about the horrors of transitioning, and to advocate for the absolute revocation of any kind of treatment for trans individuals. I would say that was wrong for you to do, because you put so many lives at risk. I mean, the mental health of so many young trans boys and trans girls was like decimated after that.
Totally. And that's where I have a problem with, and I'm sure other people have a problem with. It's not a fact that you're detransitioning. It's like, it's not a fact that we don't feel empathy for the fact that, you wasted all that time. You hurt yourself because now you feel ugly, you don't feel right, or whatever, whatever it is. But don't take your plight and make it everyone else's plight, and don't try to destroy the chances for other people to have the ability to transition because it didn't work out for you. So respect for all experiences. It's important to be respectful and understanding of individuals who have detransitioned. And, you know, you would get a lot more support, a lot more respect as a detransitioner if we didn't make it about not allowing other people to transition because it didn't work out for you.
I remember this one detransitioner trans guy in Canada who made this really heartfelt, sad, sobbing video in his car.
Oh, yeah.
And just, I mean, the right-wing media took that, they used it, they misrepresented him, they misrepresented his story.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to woo him over to be like this poster child for detransitioners. Last I knew, he's disappeared off of YouTube. He regrets having done what he did, but he knows that he can't do anything differently. So he's just trying to do the best for his own mental health.
And that other one who, like, people were using her videos, and they, the young one.
Oh, the black one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all wrong. So
Support is crucial. Providing support and resources for those who are considering or have detransitioned is essential.
the exact number of detransitioner is difficult to determine due to several factors. I try to say there's a ton or whatever, but lack of comprehensive data. There's no centralized database tracking detransitioners.
Reddit is not.
No.
No, Reddit is
in that place. And, and I'm sure there's probably 100, 200, maybe 300 out of the thousands and thousands of transitioners, because there are people that just, it didn't work out for them. They don't pass well. They don't have the money to continue their treatments.
They went back to their religion and that forbids them to be who they want to be, and regretfully they're like, okay, so I mean, there's all these different factors.
Right.
Underreporting. Detransitioners may be hesitant to disclose their experiences due to stigma and fear of judgment.
Temporary versus permanent detransition. Some individuals may detransition temporarily before transitioning again. That's, that was my case, and it's been over going on 4 years. And it's not even in the cards in the future and the whatever. I mean, that my last detransition and my last deconstruction of Christianity put the seal, and I have since, like, I can't tell you how my mental state, my way of thinking is so different from times past. I mean, it's just,
I mean, Christianity was in the back burner all the time. It was like, well, how do I square this belief in God and Jesus? Because I mean, that was something that was rattling in my brain for like my whole life. And finally, after the last time we visited the church, a church, back in Easter of this year, it was like, enough. This is BS. This belief system is nothing to believe in. It's absolutely false. It's nothing I would ever want in my life, and it's not that, oh, but in the back of your heart somewhere, there's like this feeling. And I don't know if Christians think that they could still try to motivate you to come to your senses, quote unquote, or whatever. But
I just don't believe it.
We are so far past that road. It's like we left that back there, and it's like this old, like, why did we believe that?
I know. It's crazy.
Why did I believe it? However, research suggests that a small percentage of people who transition later do detransition. I've seen it a lot of times with these HSTSs who can't be beautiful anymore. And what I mean by HSTS, for those who don't know the term, is homosexual, transsexual. And basically, they're gay men who transition and they live as trans women, but when the beauty wears off, like their hair starts falling out, or they don't have the same look anymore, the makeup doesn't sit in their face the right way anymore, or they're sagging skin, whatever it might be, they're like, well, I'd rather be, an average looking guy than an ugly woman. So they detransition before, right? And that's one of those things where it's like, they have the right to do that, and it's their business to do that, but it's not what everyone does.
And like this, the studies have found that around 8% of the respondents in certain surveys reported detransitioning at some point, with the majority doing so temporarily. So they go back, and they actually retransition, which seems to be the case for a lot of people. Let's see here. There's like a study done, a critical review of the literature. Gender detransition is the act of stopping and reversing the social, medical, and/or administration changes achieved during a gender transformation process. It's an emerging phenomenon of significant clinical and social interest.
We included 138 registers, 37% of which were empirical studies, and 38.4 of which were published in 2021. At least 8 terms related to detransition were identified, with differences in their definitions. Prevalence estimates differ according to the criteria used, being lower for detransition regret, 0 to 13.1%, than for discontinuation of care medical treatment, 1.9 to 29.8%, and for detransition / regret after surgery, 0 to 2.4%, than for detransition regret after hormonal treatment, 0 to 9.8%.
More than 50 psychological, medical, and social cultural factors influencing the decision to detransition, and 16 predictors associated factors are described. No health or legal guidelines are found. Current debates focus on the nature of gender dysphoria and identity development, the role of the professionals in accessing medical treatment, and the impact of detransition on future access to this treatment.
So the conclusions are: gender detransition is a complex, heterogeneous, under-researched, and poorly understood reality. A systematic study and approach to the topic is needed to understand its prevalence, implications, and management from a healthcare perspective.
Definitely. And I'll go ahead and put this link in the description if y'all want to look more into it. And I think that a lot of the latest transitioners, a lot of them, the ROGD, a lot of the copycats, a lot of the individuals that weren't really serious about transitioning, they transitioned for all the wrong reasons, might end up detransitioning because it's not something that, you have felt for a prolonged period of time before it became a thing.
Or it could have been like the in thing to do in high school or something, that your friends were there, or you were part of a college group and it was like this peer pressure and people, saw it as a trendy thing, and, it became like people were into, for a while, these manga characters from Japan, and these women wanted to look like these young K-pop singers or whatever, it's like,
yeah. So, it is a thing. There are people that do detransition, but I don't think it's that much of a thing. And it's kind of like fizzling, I think. You don't
hear about it
as much.
It seemed to be a trend from 2016 to 2019 or something, and then after the pandemic, something else started happening. You know,
But, it's important that we do support them. But if they want to be supported, they need to not align themselves with these hateful groups that are trying to literally take down transgender people. They literally want to eradicate us completely.
I remember you had a second cousin or something that was considering transitioning, and her mom called us and was so worried about her, and she ended up not transitioning, and it wouldn't have been a good thing for her.
Yeah, and it's not for everyone, and that's okay. So the concept of gender identity and expression has existed throughout history. We didn't just pop up, like these conservatives think that it just, happened.
Some
trend and craze that happened overnight. But the specific term transsexual is relatively recent. Here's a brief timeline. Early 20th century, the term transsexualism was first used in German medical literature in 1931.
In 1931, Dora Richter underwent the first documented vaginoplasty, considered a significant step in sex reassignment surgery.
In 1946, Michael Dillon underwent phalloplasty, making a milestone in male to female transition surgeries. Wow, 1946.
Mid-20th century, in 1949, David Olivier Caldwell introduced the term transsexual in English.
In 1952, Christian Nationalists, which many of you have heard about, became internationally known as the first person to undergo sex reassignment surgery, bringing wider public awareness to the concept of transsexuality.
Well, these are some of the earliest documented cases. It's important to remember that transgender individuals have likely existed throughout history, though their experience may not have been recorded or recognized in the same way.
Look at transgender history. Let's see here. Same DNA, but born this way. Look back at transgender history. Okay, although too many, the term transgender seems relatively new, its roots can be tracked back to ancient civilization. Verbiage and categorization have changed over time in varying different cultures. This Pride Month, we'll take a look at the history of transgender people, and how they are impacted by law today.
What is transgender? Transgender is a term for people who have a gender identity or gender expression that differs from the sex that they were assigned to at birth. Even though some people identify as the sex opposite the one they were born with, others consider themselves non-binary or genderqueer, terms that describe people who do not identify as either gender. Transsexual is a subset of transgender that refers to individuals who wish to transition to the opposite sex they were born with through sex reassignment therapy.
The concept of transgender differs from that of sexual orientation. Transgender refers to gender identity, while sexual orientation is a person's identity in relation to the gender or genders to which they are sexually attracted. Trans people may identify as heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, asexual, or pansexual.
The word transsexual was first introduced to English in 1949 by David Oliver Caldwell, and transgender was later introduced by psychiatrist John F. Oliver in 1965, with the thought that transsexual was misleading, as it did not have anything to do with sexuality.
There's always been this battle between words, and and it's when it tries to become political, it gets ruined. So here's a brief timeline of transgender history. Before the Common Era, depictions of a third sex human figure were seen in Neolithic and Bronze Age drawings. Archaeologists discovered a male buried in female clothing in the Czech Republic.
First millennium, Nero, the emperor of Rome, married Sporus, a male, who played the role of Nero's wife and was termed lady, quote unquote. Roman Emperor Elagabalus wore wigs and makeup and preferred to be called a lady, not a lord. Anastasia, the patrician, spent the remaining 2 decades of her life dressed as a male monk in seclusion in Egypt.
So, 20th century, the German term transsexualismus is introduced in 1931. Dora Richter of Berlin is the first transgender woman to undergo vaginoplasty in 1931. Michael Dillon of England is the first transgender man to undergo phalloplasty in 1946. Christine Jefferson is the first transgender person in the U.S. to have undergone sexual assignment surgery in 1952.
One of the earliest reports of hormone therapy is introduced in 1953. The term pride is used for the first time in relation to LGBT rights in 1967. The Stonewall riots occur in New York City in 1969.
In 1972, Sweden became the first country to allow transgender people to legally change their sex and to provide free hormone therapy. Angela Morley is the first transgender person to be nominated for an Academy Award in 1974. In 1976, the Human Rights Campaign is formed to protect and expand rights for the LGBTQ community in the U.S. Transgender flag is created in 1999.
21st century, International Transgender Day of Visibility is founded in 2009. In 2010, Thomas Beattie is recognized by Guinness World Records as the first married man to give birth. Phyllis Randall Fry is the first openly transgender judge appointed in the U.S. in 2010.
In 2013, first United Nations ministerial meeting was held on the rights of lesbian, gays, bisexual, and transgender individuals as a result of a study carried out over 2 decades. In 2014, the UN Human Rights Council adopted a resolution related to sexual orientation and gender identity.
The first U.S. civil suit was filed on behalf of a transgender person in March of 2015. Caitlyn Jenner became the first openly transgender woman to appear on the cover of Vanity Fair in June of 2015. President Biden announced that March 31st, 2021 is Transgender Day of Visibility in the U.S. And Christians have a connection, as they happen to fall on the same day as the Blessed Ishtar.
In March 2021, Elliot Page became the first openly trans man to appear on Times Magazine. Rachel Levine became the first openly trans person confirmed to be a senator. And they're having conniption fits about that one, too.
Transgender rights. Transgender rights vary from country to country and within jurisdictions in the United States. In some countries, the third gender is recognized in their laws. Other countries allow individuals to legally change the gender on their birth certificate after gender reassignment surgery. Some require a diagnosis of gender dysphoria for legal recognition.
In the United States alone, more than 1,117 bills were introduced in 33 states to restrict the rights of transgender people. The only time the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled directly on transgender rights was R.G. and G.R. Harris Funeral Homes Incorporated versus Equal Employment Opportunity Commission back in June of 2020, after Amy Stephens, a funeral home employee, was fired after she told her employer she was taking a vacation for gender reassignment surgery and planned to return as a woman. The case was heard alongside 2 other cases, including Bostock versus Clayton County. The ruling was 6-3, stating that the Title 11 on the 1964 Civil Rights Act extended to gays and transgender people.
In the beginning of President Joe Biden's term, he overturned the former Trump administration's ban on trans people serving in the military. The Affordable Care Act of 2010 amended in 2016 to forbid discrimination based on gender identity. In 2009, former President Barack Obama signed the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crime Prevention Act into law, a writer to the National Defense Authorization Act of 2010. This expanded the federal rule hate crime law to include crimes motivated by a victim's actual or perceived gender, sexual expression, orientation, gender identity, or disability. However, only 22 states include gender identity in the
And that's crazy today. The concept of a third gender is currently recognized by Australia, New Zealand, India, Nepal, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Germany, Malta, and Canada. While the U.S. government has not adopted this option, 20 states currently offer a non-binary option for birth certificates. So, pretty hefty information there, pretty neat information regarding the history. A lot of the, like, I didn't know that, it was 1946 was the first out, and I'm sure it's come a long way. Still not good enough. I mean, I don't know if they'll ever be able to fully, maybe when AI comes on, while the future might hold a lot of great things for transgender individuals. The first thing that we have to do is get rid of this hateful rhetoric that is rearing its ugly head since Trump has made his appearance in the political arena. We've made such headway, but we've gone backwards because of Trump, because of these hateful Christian nationalists. They just, we need to just eliminate all that altogether and not allow them to control our lives. They have no business in our bedrooms. They have no business in our personal identification. And it's crazy. So there are some scientific evidence of transsexuality.
There's a growing body of scientific research suggesting biological factors may play a role in gender identity. Here are some key areas of research.
Brain structure and function. Studies have found differences in brain structure between transgender and cisgender individuals, particularly in areas related to gender identity and sexual orientation.
Some research suggests that the brains of transgender individuals may align more closely with their experienced gender than their own assigned.
Hormonal influences. Prenatal hormone exposure has been linked to gender identity development. And that, that makes a lot of sense because when you're a fetus and you're being developed, there are, depending on the gene, the SRY gene, depending on the baby, if all goes well, this would be a match between your gender and your sexual organ. Well, when things don't go right, and we know how all the chemicals in the world, how things are not right, that it could literally compromise it. So research suggests that variations in hormone receptors and sensitivity may contribute to gender dysphoria.
Genetics. Twin studies have shown a higher prevalence rate for gender identity among identical twins compared to fraternal, suggesting a genetic component. Genome-wide association studies have identified specific genes associated with transgender identity. Yes, you heard that right.
So, all this talk about the devil and all this talk about sin and all this talk, I mean, it has to be biological in nature. People just refuse to believe it and to understand it, and they just want to paint the little world black and white, but there's many shades of gray.
I mean, how can you be otherwise in every other aspect of your life? Be sane and see life in a normal, balanced way. And then when it comes to your own gender identity and your own way that you want to express yourself, that it would be so different. Why would that be? And how would that render someone to be what disaster, crazy, or whatever, when it doesn't reflect in any other area of their life. I mean, they're an absolutely fine, normal human being that contributes to society, that wants to work with other people, that's compassionate and empathetic, and and just wants to live a peaceful life.
Like the new research, and there's going to be a lot more. The genome-wide association studies have identified specific genes associated with transgender. And more of that is going to come out. It's important to note that while these studies provide valuable insights, they do not fully explain the complex nature of gender identity. Social, cultural, and psychological factors also play significant role.
It is crucial to approach this subject with sensitivity and understanding. Gender identity is a personal experience, and there is no single cause or explanation for why someone is transgender. I mean, you can't really put everything into a box and simply have the ability to label it this way, and these are the factors, and this is what happens, and A plus B equals C. There's contributing factors that vary from individuals in their express sensitivity.
So the prevalence of transsexuality varies depending on the population and the specific definition used. However, recent studies have shown an increasing number of people identify as transgender. Why is that? You really have to ask yourself, why is that?
Here are some key points to consider. Increasing visibility. Due to increased awareness and acceptance, more people are feeling comfortable coming out as transgender. Whereas back in 1980, might not have been as, easy to do so.
Acceptable to people who not share. Diverse range of identities. The transgender umbrella includes a wide range of identities, including trans men, trans women, non-binary, and genderqueer individuals.
I remember talking about that concept of people not feeling comfortable. I stayed with an older trans woman when I was living in Minnesota for a course. And I could see the collection of the person so much so. It only really expressed and be whatever she wanted to be feminine, put in the top of the house, because she wasn't able to have the confidence to do it. And this is the person who I wanted to be in a relationship with, and have she progressed, that they weren't able to live their life the way they live life, totally not either. And you feel for a person like that because it's a society just didn't allow the opportunity to live and express themselves. And they live with this copious amount of experience, is not so much of it about surgery, and just feeling so bad about themselves because now there's finding help, and other factors have taken place, and they permanent help. So
Challenges. Accurately measuring the prevalence of transsexuality can be difficult due to various factors such as stigma, underreporting, and involving definitions.
it's also important to remember that transsexuality is complex issue with diverse experiences and perspectives. While the exact numbers may vary, it's clear that trans individuals are a growing and visible.
And I'm sure that this political climate has a little bit of botch. It's kind of like throwing a monkey wrench into the whole thing because there was a time there where it was really taking off, and people started to freak out. friends started to freak out. That they wrapped them, united a Christian Nationalists, and then it became a big. It totally big.
And we saw it on the ground.
From the young, and it's really sad because it's nobody's business what you want to do with your body. The kids that you all claim to be fighting for, that's none of your business. That's between the parents and
Back in 2015, these people, these organizations, they didn't really care about you and I. They could give it out, but they knew that we had a voice and that they wanted to move. And so they invited us. Going on a year, over a year, maybe like in October, like I did this thing like I was trying. Yeah. So we did a little like seminar for the individuals in the hotel room. They were literally setting up sabotage for this individual event that was taking place, a national conference for the event that
birthing.
yeah, birthing, and basically they got us to like be their spot, to be their instigator, to get in there and to have like some kind of like way to like discredit what was going on, the gender bread thing. And they were having us remove like actual signs and put in other pamphlets
Yeah,
on
that's
the
how they work.
table.
That's how they work. That's why they're doing what they're doing.
It's so evil, and deceptive what they wanted to do. And once we didn't play, they told me specifically that they didn't feel safe with me. And it was like, here's this really. But the persecution of transgender, but Christian Nationalists have been growing in recent years. This persecution manifests in various ways.
Including legislative attacks. Christian Nationalists have been instrumental in pushing for discriminatory legislation targeting transgender people, such as bathroom bills and restrictions on gender-affirming health care.
Again, we got like this individual, I think it was a pastor in Tennessee, Greg Locke, who started making all these anti-trans videos back in the 16s and stuff like that. We were living in Florida, I remember we did a video for Target,
Yeah.
and we were like, really, it's not right for you to be picking on trans people and the whole bathroom bills and all that. Just the discourse and the rhetoric is another thing. They spread harmful misinformation and stereotypes about transgender people, literally dehumanizing them and fueling hatred and discrimination, just like they did. Like Trump is saying that these kids have the potential to come to school and leave as a girl or a boy, and it's like he doesn't care that it's not true.
Well, it's like eating cats and dogs. It's like they will spread any lies they can. Because once something's repeated, and you repeat it long enough, people tend to believe it, and they know that works, and they know they get people in a frenzy. That's they use the transgender experience to get into people's heads, to get people fighting against transgender. Religious discrimination. Some Christian nationalists deny transgender people's existence and rights, citing religious beliefs as justification for their exclusion and mistreatment.
And that's just what has always been understood to be flat out discrimination. Whether it's a racist discrimination or if it's social discrimination, it's all from the same seed of hatred. You know, it's like this haughtiness that you think that they're the ones that are living the right life, and you're the one. And the funny thing is that so many of these people, they have their own like hang-ups and things. Like certain people, like they wish they could be expressive the way they want to be expressive about their sexuality or their gender identity, and they just use like people like you and I as like you know a way for them to be able to connect to the community, but still not be a part of it. You know what I mean? But then I don't know if they get the dopamine high from like saying that they were able to connect with you or something. Well, so another thing is violence. It's very real. And trans individuals, particularly those who are black and trans, are just people who are significant victims of violence. Often fueled by anti-trans rhetoric promoted by haters like Christian Nationalists. It's important to note that not all Christians hold these views, and many religious leaders and organizations actively support and advocate for the rights of trans people. However, the influence of Christian nationalism has led to significant persecution and discrimination against trans people.
The persecution of transgender individuals by Christian nationalists is a complex issue with various facets. Here are some additional points to consider. Theological basis. Some Christian nationalists draw on specific interpretations of religious texts to justify their opposition to transgender rights. They may argue that gender is a binary concept determined at birth and that any deviation from this norm is sinful or unnatural.
Political manipulation. Christian nationalist groups often use fear-mongering tactics and misinformation to mobilize their base and influence public opinion against transgender people. There's one athlete, like a wrestler, I guess, Ted Cruz is using his picture and his face to like be anti-trans and stuff, or like these girls that are cis girls in Oregon who are being utilized in their videos to promote another anti-trans rhetoric, you know, and these girls are like, wait a second, we're not even trans. Why are you using it? They may falsely claim that trans individuals pose a threat to children, or that allowing trans will lead to the erosion of traditional values.
Social and cultural impact. The persecution of transgender individuals by Christian nationalists has far-reaching social and cultural consequences that can lead to increased rates of bullying, harassment, and violence against transgender people, as well as limiting their access to healthcare, employment, and health.
The role of media. The media plays a significant role in shaping the perceptions of transgender people. One of the people that I think about is Derek Martin. He is continuing to lie about saying that my belief is actually real, and that he somehow was able to get a medal away from, you know, like he doesn't even want to do this for me. And they don't care about it. You know, they really don't. It just keeps spreading. So media outlets, particularly those that are Christian calling out News Daily Wire, may portray trans individuals in a negative or stereotypical manner, contributing to speculation and discrimination. Like Matt Walsh making a movie about, you know, like in trans women playing basketball. I guess there was a comedy that kind of felt like it was about, you know, him in a wig. And
It's important to note that not all Christians hold anti-transgender views, and many religious leaders and organizations actively support and advocate for the rights of people. However, the influence of Christian nationalism has led a significant increase in persecution and discrimination against transgender individuals. It is crucial to challenge these harmful narratives and promote understanding and acceptance of transgender people.
you can do this by educating yourself about transgender issues, supporting transgender rights organizations, and speaking out against discrimination and hate speech, and actually talking to a trans person,
Yeah.
because who would know but us, about our lived experience and the kind of people that we,
Totally. I mean, it is mind blowing that it's 2024. And then instead of going forward and evolving as a species and learning to coexist with
we're
other
falling
people,
back.
we're falling back. And it's because of Donald Trump. It's because of these Christian nationalists and religious zealots, conservatives that don't want to live in a world that has diversity. They just want their peanut butter and jelly. They don't want to try anything else. They don't want other people to try anything else. And they want to shape the world the way they want it and how it. And I'm telling you, you don't go out there and vote and realize that you may not be trans, you may not be gay, but your grandkids, your great grandkids, what kind of world are you leaving?
And the stakes are so high in children in this country. And I know that there are so many LGBT people all around this country that, like, on tens of needles, just stressed out over it, worried. I can't imagine me actually able to. That's kind of right now. And I'm going to be able to say, anything, is that going to be possible, or they can extend my life to be able to do my job.
And if he decides to change everything, I remember you mentioned something that you are only the biological sex that you are born as, and alter all the paperwork for any of us that live their life as the gender that we transition to. If you decide to flip out a pen and change all the stuff that you have been doing, our lives will be changed. People don't realize that if you decide that all the gay couples that got married both there.
I mean, this guy that I used to go to school with, college, he literally, said, you're just one vote away from, not being able to live your life as a country. Ha ha ha. It's like, it's not funny. It's not funny at all. We don't understand the lived experience. We wouldn't know. But, it's just like talking to a job. They have no capacity. It would be very destructive for, what Trump wants to do is border in the United States by, literally pulling the military on citizens and others to expel people who aren't American enough. And he even says that, and he said this, but he said, and if a perfectly legitimate citizen gets caught up in it, and the rest finds out, they're going to give you all kinds of hell about it. But he's like, it's a part of the system. So he's even saying, we're going to do it. And, first we're going to come to it. And we're going to and then when it comes to all the minorities, it's like Stephen Miller said it at the rally. He said, America is for American.
I like that civil rights movie that we saw. What kind of American are you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's, yeah, fun times. If anyone has any questions, that's the time to call it. questions or comments, 602-456-760. Scrolling, we'll talk about the movies that we saw this again. And I love this movie. We saw all of them, and I really like that actor. I'm actually found he's a very interesting individual. Very um, I really like the message. Uh, there's a friendship that developed between this alien and his host. And it was just a very touching that such a monster that initially was sort of humanity became changed because of the connection with his host and had not.
Yeah, it was a great story that they did focus on the two and how that symbiotic connection was something very special. And it was really it was pretty touching to see that. And see how other people were affected by it. Well, it wasn't just Eddie and Venom, but there were other alien creatures that were being trapped and stuff, and they also connected with President and did good because everything the good.
It's a comedy slash good drama, bit nice effects, seeing the big screen.
I mean, it's Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel. I definitely recommend it. I'd give it a go. This one, and the other one that we saw was what was it's called? That was a different book. That was not exactly. That was a little slow start, but once it got going, it kind of, like showed you behind the scenes of what happens in the car, and the nuns, and and that was perfect.
When the Pope died, they literally shut everything down. All lived together, and they put every single day their came to the Pope. They signify it by, black, they don't, and it was really interesting because there's so much of the power to play between they're all done it. Literally, and this one guy, he was given the responsibility to be the head in the he was talking about that was who is qualified, who is the best person. And we found this that later that this one cardinal was actually made cardinal the country is telling by the Pope in secret, that they have a lasting book. He literally served in Afghanistan, Africa, very humble, very simple, he's a very kind-hearted person. He was Mexican, again, and he was a guy.
Yeah.
But his heart was under administration, because the way he was able to share his heart with the end and tell them about what is important. That it wasn't important that they were Catholic. It wasn't important that, that they were, the Roman Catholic. That speech that he did, and
Yeah, because the other candidates were haughty and they were divisive, and they were tired because they got like an explosion in the actual area, and it was some sort of, I guess, act of defiant with bombs. But and so the guy was like, "That's enough. We have to stop these animals." And really angry and very divisive, wanting the war. And what I was told, the other guy, the Pope was like, "You need to stop the division. You understand that we need to like come together." It's kind of like it's happening.
sort of like that message that Cummings has, which is that I will sign the case for every application. Be able to, I don't see it, but I can see it as a person. We can all work together for everyone. And then versus the other one, it's like trying to shoot senators, trying to cause riots and stuff. Who knows what we have to do every 6 days before,
It's crazy. I don't know what's going to happen, what's the future holds. We're going away this weekend, and we're going to be gone for a whole week. We won't be having a show next Friday, which is but God only knows what the future. It's really not.
We see the Trump administration out there, in a very heavily Republican area. Big shock. They've been burning mail and ballot boxes. They've already, everything with explosions going on. And what was it the last time somebody said it was living
In California. Yeah, he's not going to take no from it. Screaming at the free price, Trump style way of doing things, it's denying everything. Yeah, I'm over it. I can't wait for this whole thing. Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the vendors, all the business, back to that, crisis that happened in Cuba, with power and the United States still was using the blockade. We listed all these countries with the United States.
The rest of the world wants to
The rest of the world wants it, and this country to fully,
Zionist run countries. You know?
and then
It's highly frustrating, problematic.
I think we should have an alien invasion.
Yeah, that would really,
That is all straight.
yeah.
So that, okay, we understand. You really want to leave?
Yeah, I'll give you something.
I'll give you something.
Something like
Then
that.
we can all unify.
When we were kids, you want something to cry about? Whip off that belt. You want to cry? I'll make you cry. You know.
Or the alien entity or whatever, whoever seeded humanity would come back and say, you know what, you guys, we need to fix
Well, that's all we got for tonight, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something new regarding transgender, detransitioning, transitioning, history, and all good stuff. The latest studies regarding scientific evidence of genome and there being a gene connection to who we are. I know that the Christians want to hear that, conservatives want to hear that. Maybe that's their priests, agree, but it ain't gonna happen. We ain't going anywhere. We're here to stay. We've always been here, always.
There was a post by an old friend on Facebook talking about a younger generation. If it's so happens, whatever takes place, if that place is the elderly community will not too far. It's not going to go there. Trans people are not going to disappear. We're not going to just fold up our pants and, oh, well, we're going to all get to detransition, trying to get the, it's not going to happen. So we are actors, we are communities in our heart. We do not just give up, so if it takes some kind of like metal fire burning, to affect us, so do it.
I live in the world where I live in it was not legal. And there was a lot of forgiveness in my experience. Yeah, so I wouldn't want to go back there again. But if it has to be, then it has to be. Hey, we're not going away. No matter what. Some of these people they go on and on and on. That's not right. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what they think they're going to accomplish. We usually I've worked hard for this country. I made this country where it is today. About the immigrants. I don't think they're going to accomplish that. Yeah, so no show next Friday.
whole climate. Reality is like fortune. So he chose to go to but without driving, yeah, I wanted to do it. That was see, that's what I'm going to try. Once you want,
Oh, we got me on. All right, guys. So we'll catch you in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you guys have a safe weekend. Buckle up Tuesday. Buckle up for the next 2 or 3 months. So, yeah, try and get it. All right, guys. We love you. But remember to always love yourselves through.